Well, I'm super excited to welcome Hope to the Core Connections podcast today. She is a fellow FDN, and we were just chatting about all the fun things that we could talk about today. I feel like we could probably talk for a very long time. So we're like, okay, here's our focus. So welcome, Hope. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Thanks so much for having me, Erica. Me too.
So I want to start with just talking a little bit about burnouts, because I feel like, especially like when I release this, it's going to be near the beginning of the year, and we've just come out of the holidays and the first of the year, and everyone's got all maybe these goals and things planned for themselves for this year. But I feel like a lot of people might already be a little burned out. And so sometimes that's actually when our gas tank is empty and we're trying to then add more to our plates, that it just exacerbates, and we're really left with like, oh my God, I don't want to do anything, but I got to do the things because I got kids, or I got life, work, all of it, right?
Yep, we can't turn it off. Yeah, I think so too. And I think I was just reading, actually, funny, we were talking about this and I thought about it as you were saying that. I was just reading this post earlier from, I think she's like I want to say she's like a naturopath or functional medicine doctor, one of those, but she was talking about how it, like, at the end of the year, everything just kind of accumulates. And then a lot of times, we don't give ourselves a chance to kind of like exhale and like breathe for a second before we jump right into the new year. And so it's like all of these things that have been building up at the end of the year, we're just taking with us into the new year. And our body's like, wait a second, like I need a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so, and that's exactly like I'm doing an 8-week group coaching program starting early this year, because I'm like, yes, I know in some aspects it's like putting a little bit more on your plate initially, but like it's also to teach you how to simplify, calm your nervous system, get out of that fight or flight, and be more present in life. And I know so many times women think, well, but I just can't. There's no way, because how to put one more thing. And it's like, no, but sometimes we have to look at life in, not sometimes, actually always, we should look at it from a priority perspective. And are we living our life in alignment, which is going to go really well with our human design conversation today. I'm really excited about, because when we have those things and we start to shift our perspective and start to see, wait, maybe I'm actually not living in alignment with what's really important to me. Maybe I need to start saying no to some things in my life that I've been thinking I need to say yes to. And it's all those things that have built up and built up and built out and left you feeling, oh my gosh, I don't even know. I have no time. I mean, I hear all the time from women, right? I teach a lot of movement, and they're like, I don't even have 10 minutes to work out. And I'm like, no, you do. Every single person has 10 minutes to move their body every single day. And if you don't, you better start figuring out how, because your health is going to start to go downhill quickly.
That's it. And I think that's the other piece. I think that, well, a few pieces to that, to untangle with that. I think as women, we have a hard time, not all women, I don't want to speak for everybody, but a lot of women have a hard time kind of like, I don't want to say saying no, but I have a hard time like with that you're talking about prioritizing, like really understand, like there are some things you have to say no to. Like you can't say yes to everything. And I know we quote unquote can do it all, but sometimes you don't need to do it all. Like just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so I think for a lot of women, we have a hard time like prioritizing and trying to figure out, okay, what can I say no to without, feeling bad or guilty or whatever. All these like emotions start to come up, and these, this conditioning, which kind of goes along with our human design conversation, but this conditioning comes up where we've either been conditioned to think like, well, I have to say yes to everything, or I have to take care of everybody else first before myself. Or well, I'm just busy. Like it's just having kids just means you're busy all the time. Like I have to be like I have to. It's like, a lot of times I feel like we're in this competition. Like who can be busier? Like who can fill their day with more crap? Like,
or if we're not doing something, because I've dealt with the whole like, oh my gosh, when I actually started to feel space in my life, I'm like,
I need to fill it.
I don't even know what to do with space in my life. And then all we do is we fill it, and we don't even know we do it.
That's exactly it. And I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier about the presence, like being present. I think that's a huge piece of it is, Because I think that's a lot of times, I think sometimes we're scared to have that space because then we're like, what does that mean about me? And what does that mean? Do I have to like be alone with my thoughts? And, like, so I think there's a lot of pieces to untangle with that on like having space. But I think that presence that you're talking about is really important because I mean, that presence is what builds self-awareness. So we can really be in tune with our body. And then we can kind of recognize like, okay, maybe I am burning a candle at both ends here. Like maybe I am getting close to burnout. Like maybe I do need to slow down. Maybe I need to take a few things off my plate. We can kind of build that awareness piece to figure out where we can prioritize what, like what we can give up and start to like really put ourselves first. I think that's really hard for women, especially moms. It's hard to put ourselves first, but at the end of the day, you're running yourself ragged. I mean, what good are you to anybody else,
Yeah, exactly. And I hear time and time again from my clients and students when they finally prioritize themselves. And again, remembering too that prioritizing yourself does not mean you have to go to the spa and get a massage and spend an hour or two a day. No, no, no. It is literally as simple as like just my example is 10 to 15 minutes of movement every
Yeah.
single day. And you know
Yeah.
what? It makes you feel so much better about yourself. It increases your energy and, everything just starts to kind of then fall into place so much better. And it might be something else that you prioritize for you. It doesn't matter. But my example that I like to use is just the movement, right?
Yeah.
And it's so stinking powerful. And then all of a sudden you're more present and you're living in more alignment for what's important to you, which I think is so important. And I feel like maybe this is a good spot to kind of weave into human design because I feel like when I first learned what my human design was, like as I was listening and learning all the different types and all that, and I was like, I knew exactly which one I was just by listening to them. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of creepy. And it explains me a lot. I'm like, this is why I get all the ideas. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You can't jump on every single one of them. So Hope, will you tell everybody, because I'm sure a lot of people listening are like, what is human design? And I'm sure a lot of people have also heard about it. But let's start there. What is human design? So everybody is clear and knows what it is.
Yeah. So human design it's known as a lot of different things. The science of differentiation. It's the energetic blueprint of your soul. It basically it incorporates all these kind of ancient teachings from like the chakra system, astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, and then it puts it together with these more like modern day schools of thought like biochemistry and neuroscience and quantum physics and quantum mechanics, and it puts it together into this system that's like a map of who you are. And it's a map of literally it's your energetic blueprint. And so it's the purpose of it really is for you to understand how truly unique you really are at an energetic level. It's how you best interact with energy around you, with people around you, how you best make decisions. Like there's so many pieces to take from it to implement into your own life so that you can really, like we were talking about living in alignment earlier, really live in alignment with how you were truly designed. And I really love to incorporate this with my clients because I feel that like looking at wellness through the lens of human design, we can really look at one of the root causes of so many chronic issues that people face is spending an excessive amount of energy being something or someone who they are not designed to be, right? They're living against their design. So they're spending all this energy, like we were talking before, like doing things they think they should be doing or making decisions in a way they think they should be making decisions, right? Whether it's from, society, genetic coding, just, collective beliefs, whatever it is, we've been conditioned to think we have to live in a certain way that isn't necessarily how we were designed to live and to believe and to act. And so when we start to perpetually fall into these behaviors start adding up and they don't fit in alignment with our energetic blueprint. And so we spend this excessive amount of energy trying to hold up this kind of facade, I guess, right? This kind of mask of being something that we're not designed to be. So when we do that for too long, the body starts to burn out. We start to meet resistance, right? You start to experience exhaustion and burnout. Your immune system, all these physical things start to manifest on the surface because we're going against how we were designed. We're going against our energetic blueprint. So when we really understand human design, your own personal human design, you can really uncover your specific blueprint and live more in alignment with who you were designed to be.
Okay, so now can you explain really briefly, like what are the types of human design?
For sure. Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know what they are. And is there a way to do like a quick summary of each of them? So people listening might be like, oh, that might be what I am. And there's a whole deep dive. Like, I feel like there's so many layers to it. I know I have not yet done a really deep dive into my human design. I've kind of just done the surface layer, understanding what type I am. And it's almost comical and funny. And you're like, yep, this so explains accurate. A lot. Yeah.
Totally. Yes. And you're right. There's so many layers to this. And I think knowing your type is a good place to start because it's kind of at least gives you a general idea of like how you are here to interact with things. And so I think, so I'll go through the types and maybe a few little pieces of like how to like tips, kind of like wellness tips kind of thing with each piece.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So, okay. So we'll start with, and let me say this first. If you've never done your chart before, if you go to my favorite, there's a ton of them out there. My favorite one is myhumandesign.com. Jenna Zoe does that. I feel like she does it the best way because it's really easy to understand and it's not as complex as some of the other ones. So you can go, it's for free. You just need your birth date, time, and place. And don't guess your time or it's not gonna be right. So if you don't know the time, look at your birth certificate, call your mom. That's what I did. Call my mom. What time was I born?
Yeah, so that's the website I use too.
It's perfect. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. Okay, so I'll start with generators. So generators are the doers. They are really magnetic beings who are here to do a lot. They're here to really do what lights them up. They're here to be kind of like the life force, the driving force of the planet. So manifestors, which I'll get to in a second, manifestors like come up with the ideas. The generators are the ones that like bring it to life. They're the doers and they have a lot of energy. What fuels their energy is really being in alignment with what brings them pleasure and joy, like in the moment. And so a good indication if a generator is like moving out of alignment, if you're feeling frustration as you're not self-themed, so if you're feeling frustrated, that's a good indication like, okay, something is out of alignment here. Like, what am I doing that maybe isn't in alignment with me? What am I doing that maybe I could, delegate to somebody else? But really sticking to the things that bring you like pleasure, satisfaction, and joy and fun. That's who you're designed. You're designed to be lit up by everything in your life. And because you have like this constant energy, you have a really consistent energy, generators are really designed to go until exhaustion. So a lot of times I'll talk to my generators, or if they're having trouble falling asleep at night, we'll talk about, okay, well, did you move and get all of your, and it's like a puppy, right? I always equate it to a puppy. Like you let your puppy out in the backyard, let them run around so then they can take a nap later, or your kid. So it's like that, like, let's get all the energy out, whether that's like physically moving. And sometimes too, it's like ideas, like maybe you need to do a good brain dump before you go to bed and just get all the things out in your head, like out on paper. So your brain can like kind of, so really encouraging you to go to exhaustion and understanding that if you are feeling exhaustion, it's a good indication that you're not setting clear enough boundaries, like learning when to say no to things that don't light you up, that don't excite you, and knowing like where to set those boundaries. So next we'll talk about manifestors. Manifestors, pretty small percentage of the population. It's only about 9% of the population. And so they, like I mentioned before, they're like the visionaries. They're like the ones who like initiate things. They have the ideas and then they kind of pass that on to the generators to bring it to life. So they have a really unique energy because they don't have that same consistent energy that generators do. And this can be a piece that like takes some deconditioning, meaning we kind of have to learn like what's really ours and what's not. Because especially if manifestors are around, like generators or manifesting generators a lot, they're going to feel this need to like, well, I got to keep pushing, I got to keep going, but they're not designed to do that. Manifestors are not designed to keep going like generators are. If you're going to exhaustion, you're going too far. Manifestors have to really be more protective of their energy because they kind of work in phases, like these energetic phases. So they could have kind of this like this creating phase, like this phase where they're creating things, and they might have more energy. So, more calorie dense foods, more like active movement, like maybe more high intensity exercise, right? But then once they do that, they need a rest. So they're letting go of that phase, moving on to kind of this resting phase. And so that's when we kind of have to shift, like maybe more light and cooling foods, maybe more like lower intensity movement or exercise, but really like honoring kind of where you are in that energetic phase. And that awareness piece really comes into play, especially we're talking about human design, to really kind of feel your energy in the moment and honoring that. I think there's a big piece of that where you're not, again, it's like when you're pushing against that energy is when you start to meet the resistance and the burnout and the exhaustion and all of that. So for manifestors, you are not designed to go into exhaustion. What's helpful for manifestors at the end of the day is kind of like taking time to disconnect and discharge from the day. So whether that's like, 30 to 45 minutes before you go to bed, if it's reading or journaling or listening to music or, mindless TV, whatever it is, but just kind of disconnecting from the day so that you're not taking that with you to bed. Burnout can be, I feel like for manifestors, burnout, and I don't want to speak in generalities, just in my experience dealing with different energy types. I feel like I find a lot of manifestors that are more prone to burnout because I think it's a conditioning piece where they just feel like they need to keep going and keep going. And they're just not designed to do that. So manifestors really have to be mindful of where they're putting their energy and where they're honoring their energy, kind of where they are.
Well, it comes down to this like society, right? It's all about go, go, go. And I especially feel like I was just talking about this the other day because a friend of mine in Australia, and she was talking about going on holiday, and she's like, it's a month off. And I'm like, we don't do that.
Yeah.
In the US, right? Yeah. We just don't. We are not conditioned to take much time off from work. And I think everybody, honestly, no matter your type, needs that downtime. But some people need more than others. Yeah. And your downtime can look a little bit different too. Yeah. That's the thing to mention to people. But you are so right. I think there is a lot of deconditioning that we have to do, especially if we're dealing with health stuff.
Yes.
And I mean, there's all sorts of, that's such a big, umbrella statement.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone might be dealing with something different. But when we really tap into what's in alignment with our energetics, our body, all of that, it really makes such a difference. Because I have realized that, I am someone who I can get on a project and I can just go and don't stop me. Yep. But as soon as I'm done, I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, I'm done, Yes. And it's interesting. Okay. I don't want to distract too much. Let's get back to
it's good.
To our
and I think I think it's a great point you make too, though, is that the downtime piece, emphasizing that point that everybody's downtime and rest, I'm using air quotes, rest time looks different. Because like for me and you as manifesting generators, we're like a more like active rest kind of thing, whereas other
like
types,
going on a walk for me is like my husband will even say to me, if I haven't been for a walk in a while, he's like, I think you need to go out for a walk. Take the dog for a walk. It's this kind of way of like that. And for me, that is so nourishing and calms me and like just brings me back. And I just go walk. And again,
I'm the same way.
But like a manifestor, that may be too much for them. And they actually just need to veg out. And like, I have a really hard time just sitting on the couch. Yeah. Like when we're recording this, I'm like, we got some bad weather coming. And I'm like, the next couple of days, I'm like, thank goodness I have my little gym in my house. Yes. And I mean, you can do anything, right? You don't have to have a lot, but because I'm like, I'm not going to be getting outside on my walk for a little while, know? And I can start to go a little stir crazy because sitting and watching movies with the family, I can only do so much of that.
Right. Yep. I feel you. It looks different for everybody. So keep that in mind. Everybody listening, just keep that in mind. So, okay. So the next type is manifesting generators. And so me and Erica are both manifesting generators. And so they're kind of a combination between manifestors and generators. They're a little bit more generator than they are manifestor, but we have characteristics of both. So manifesting generators are they're like they're like the Energizer bunnies. Like they have so much energy to get out. And they are literally here to do it all. So they are like the kings and queens of multitasking. They're multi-passionate, they're multifaceted, they're here to do all the things. So I know for me, I'm like you, when I learned my human design, I'm like you. I was like, oh, I know, I for sure know that's me. Like, I don't need anyone to tell me anything else. I know that's me. Because for so long, I'm like, there's all these things I like to do and all these projects. And I would always tell myself, like, no, like, just pick one, just like chill out, pick one, stick with it. And then when I did my human design, I'm like, wait a minute, like, no, I'm designed to do all, like, that's literally how I'm designed. I'm designed to do 68 things at once. Like, my browser on my computer is like obnoxious, but like, that's how I work. That's how I'm wired. And so being unapologetic about how you were designed, I think is really important, because we're here to multitask and pursue all the things that light you up in the moment. Even this is important, even if it means not following through with it to the end. There's another deconditioning piece there for manifesting generators, where other people, society maybe, might see them as flaky or indecisive or whatever, because they kind of hop from one project to the next. That's literally how they were designed. They're not designed to finish it to completion. They're designed to start it, because that's another thing too. Again, if you dive deeper into human design, you talk about the gates and the channels. When you look deeper into it, manifesting generators kind of take what manifestors have, they've visionaries, they've, have these ideas. They pass it to the generators and the manifesting generators. Manifesting generators kind of like tweak it and change it. And kind of like, one of my mentors calls it like Frankensteining things. They kind of put things together, create something new. And then when they get tired of working on it, then they can pass it back on to like a projector who can kind of look at it from a different perspective and kind of maybe keep the project going. So just because you start something doesn't mean you have to finish. And if you look at the gates and channels on your chart, some gates and channels mean that you kind of complete. If you have some gates and channels, if you're looking at your chart, there's like little lines that connect different shapes. And some of your channels connect with other people's channels. And that means there's people who create the ideas and there's people who finish the ideas. So my point is, for manifesting generators, don't feel like, if you've ever thought yourself as flaky or I just need to decide whatever, like that's who you were designed to be. And I think this is important to look at it. We're talking about wellness and like exercise and food and all those things too, because like manifesting generators, we do not like being put in a box. And so we don't like being too restricted. So really restrictive diets, counting calories, labeling food as good or bad, get like all these things. Too much structure is like poke your eyeballs out for a mani gen. Like, it just doesn't work. So if you think about things in terms of like working in phases, so maybe you have a running phase and you get tired of that. Then you have a CrossFit phase, or you have a cycling phase, or a Pilates phase, or a bar phase. So just think of, rather than thinking of yourself as flaky, no, I just do things in phases. And when I get tired of this one thing, I can find something else to do that excites me and brings me joy and lights me up. Same thing with food. Eating, which I'm not a fan of super restrictive diets anyway, but if you're looking at like eating in, a healthful way, maybe you try all the things. Like, maybe I'll go do paleo for a while. I'll get tired of that. Well, let me try Whole30 for a while. I get tired of that. So maybe you just try all the things and do it in phases. Doesn't mean you're flaky, doesn't mean you can't stick to it. It just means it doesn't excite you anymore. So keeping that in mind when you're making decisions about things that you're doing and how you eat and move, do what lights you up in the moment, do what feels good for you. Because again, when you keep doing things that you're just like, feels like to you, the frustration, the impatience, that's your not self theme as a manifesting generator. When you're feeling the impatience or the frustration, that's an indication that you're doing something that you're out of alignment, right? You're doing something that doesn't excite you anymore, or whatever it is. And it's your intuition, your inner voice telling you that, okay, this doesn't excite me anymore. Let's move on to the next thing, kind of thing. And then one more note about manifesting generators. For sleep, same as generators. You're designed to go to exhaustion. You're like that little puppy that needs to get all the energy out in the backyard. Go until exhaustion, to get a good night's sleep, get all the energy, physical energy out, do a brain dump, like whatever you need to do to kind of get everything out of your head so that you can have a good restful sleep. Next is projectors. Projectors are a really unique energy. I have a couple clients who are projectors, and my son is actually a projector. So if you look at your chart, at your body graph, you have the different shapes, right? And they're all associated with different parts of the body. And it's kind of how the chakra system ties into human design, if you're familiar with the chakra system. So the projector, they have a lot of open centers, which means they're not colored in. They're not filled in with a color. They're white. And that means that they're much more susceptible to outside energy and more susceptible to conditioning, which is, it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just
would you say they are more empathic?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
you've taken people's energy a lot. You're a lot more sensitive to other people's energy. Totally. Yes. And your energy is designed to be more fluid, whereas people who have defined centers, they're kind of like, this is how it is. Projectors have a more fluid energy and it kind of flows differently, and totally 100%, they're more susceptible to other people's energy. So projectors are kind of like, they're very perceptive and they're really good at problem solving. So they're like the people, one of my mentors called it like birds on a wire, and not in like a hierarchy way, like they're better, but they're just kind of looking and kind of overseeing things and kind of thinking like, okay, we could probably do this different and do this different. So they look at things from a totally different perspective, totally different way of seeing things. So because their energy is so unique, they don't have the consistent energy that we talk about manifesting generators and generators have. They really are designed to work in spurts, right? So really projectors are designed to work for like 3 hours at a time, take a rest, 3 or 4 hours at a time, take a rest. They require more sleep than other types. They require more rest than other types. I've had a projector client one time and she would like, God, I just feel like, I have to take a nap sometimes during the day. And I'm like, okay, so what? Take a nap.
Take a nap.
She felt bad about it. Felt like yeah, right.
Yeah.
Felt like she needed to apologize for it. But it's like, no, your energy, like you need to refuel. That's how you recharge your batteries, is taking a rest, take a nap if you need to take a nap. So again, it kind of goes back to that awareness piece where you can kind of honor like how your energy is feeling. And if you've zapped all your energy out, then recharge it. Now, not to say there are some projectors who can work, not to say all projectors should only work for 3 hours at a time, because if you're doing something that lights you up and that brings you joy, then sure, you have a longer battery life, right? But just knowing that at some point your battery is going to start to die and it needs to be recharged. I also find projectors in terms of like kind of like diet and exercise, they typically do better. Again, I don't want to say I'm not a fan of restrictive diets, but they do better like eating a certain way. So they do better with like sticking to like, I'm just going to eat paleo, or I'm just going to eat because really I feel like it's because it requires less energy for them. Like they don't have to exert as much energy to think about what they're going to eat, because they can kind of stick to something a little easier, because it's like, well, it's less energy for me to expend. So I'm just going to eat this way. So I find that helpful for projectors, is like, okay, this is how I'm going to eat. You're talking about going on a walk earlier. I find that a lot of times for projectors, they kind of get in like this like state. Really the best way for projectors is getting out alone, especially in nature. That's a really good way to kind of tune back in. Again, because they do take in so much energy. Their aura is very open. So they take in a lot of energy from people and things around them. Getting out alone in nature is kind of a really crucial way to reconnect with themselves and kind of get back into their body. And then the last type is reflector. Reflectors are a very small percentage of the population. I have yet to work with a reflector. They're so unique. They're so hard to find. It's only 1% of the population.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So whereas talks about projectors have more open centers, reflectors have all open centers. Every center on their chart is totally open. So they are totally open to the energy around them. They're taking in everything and reflecting it back to us. So they have a really unique sense of seeing things in a different way, but really experiencing things in a different way, because they're able to take in so much of the energy around them. They have a way of seeing people and situations in a way that really no other type can. They can read others. So a lot of reflectors have like different gifts, like telepathic gifts. They can see things, or they can see things on a different like energetic level. And since they take in so many people's so much energy, or people around them, whatever, all day. Their environment, their alone time, their community is really important. Understanding, like, it's really important for them to set boundaries when they feel like their energy is kind of like, okay, I'm feeling a little zapped, especially if they're around manifesting generators all day. I mean, that's going to zap their energy like super fast. Like we're like the Tasmanian devil around them. Like they're like, okay, this is, too much. So giving them time, giving themselves time to like alone, a safe space, like even like setting up a safe space in their house or apartment, wherever you live. Like, this is my space. This is where I can go be alone and kind of like discharge from all the energy of the day. And intuition is going to play a huge piece here for reflectors, because their energy is going to be different. Every day is going to be different. Every hour of the day could be different for a reflector, depending on who they're around and what they're doing. So knowing that their energy is going to change so much. So that means like what they eat and how they move, their exercise routine, maybe even just their daily routine could look different every day, just based on how their energy feels. So knowing like, if you're feeling good and energetic, okay, maybe a high intensity workout is a good idea today. If you're feeling like super drained and I've really taken on a lot of energy today, maybe you go for a walk or do yoga or meditate, something that's going to be lower impact and lower intensity. Journaling and breath work can be really supportive for reflectors, so they can again reflect on themselves, I guess is a good way to put it there, but being able to like get things out and tune in with their body. And again too, just taking that time to just discharge from the day and from other people around them.
I think it's so interesting, right? Just to learn, it's basically learning something else about yourself that you didn't even know about.
Exactly. Well, and I think the other piece too, I know when I first started learning mine, it was like, it's almost like you knew it, but either you were trying to convince yourself like, no, that's not me. Or it's like, it's like validating, right? Like, oh yeah, like that is me. And it's okay. Like that's how I'm designed. It's like meeting, I've said this before, I felt like it was like meeting myself for the first time, but then also meeting an old friend at the same time. Like I knew it, but at the same time, I'm like, oh wait, like this seems new. So it's just a whole different way of understanding yourself. And I think too, it can be helpful learning like your family members. And, if you have coworkers, or if you run a business, like people who work for you, like it will transform how you interact with people. Like it's like this psychology experiment when you're literally trying to understand how people are designed and how they're functioning and why they're doing the things they're doing. And then you can be like, oh, okay, that's why they're super like extra emotional about this. That's why they're getting triggered by this. Like, okay, like, and you can really understand people at a totally different level.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And when I was first learning about it, for me, it was almost like this validation of like permission to be like, this is why you just have all these ideas. And then it's almost like, it's like, because one thing for me as a business owner, I've had to really focus. Focus has been like if I'm not focusing on something, I'm going to start 10 projects or 10 programs. And I'm like,
same time.
no. Yeah. And I am a creator through and through. And, so when I learned that I was a manifesting generator, I'm like, oh, wow, I really can just like, I can create so much stuff, but like, it's always the implementation, the marketing, that's the piece. It's like, it does not come. Right. I mean, I've gotten better at it because I've learned it, but it's definitely is not intuitive to me.
Right.
Like I can teach like it's no one's business. I can create programs like it's no one's business. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so it was validating that fact that I'm like, okay, that's so when you get 1,000 ideas a day, how about you start writing them down and not feeling like you have to act on them and all those things. So for me, I just thought it was really interesting. And I was telling my husband about it. And he was literally laughing because he was like, oh my God.
He's like, yeah, this is it.
Like, oh, that really does explain you to a T.
So funny. It's so
very
and
interesting.
He makes such a good point, because I think that's the other thing too, especially for manifesting generators and generators too. You get all these ideas and the ideas are coming for a reason, but like you said, like you don't have to act on all of them now. Like the ideas come, but you don't have to do it all like right now.
Yeah. Exactly. It's learning, it's working with your strengths,
Yes.
then also recognizing, okay, so I'm really good at these things. And then it's like anything in life, but I think it makes you recognize pieces where like for me, I think until I really like until I learned that, I think it was like maybe like 2 years ago or something like that. And I was like, oh, this is why this all happened super easy for me. And then it's like, this is why my focus and me marketing and like all that stuff, like I just it's gotten easier, like I said, but I've really had to learn it because it wasn't intuitive to me. And almost having such extremes, it just was like almost like this inner battle. Like, how can you be so good at all of this and this stuff comes so easy? And this is like, I've had moments of it being a big challenge. And so anyway, I'm sharing all this with everybody listening in hopes that maybe for some of you listening, it may resonate with you in a different way. It may not be exactly the same, but that's just me being completely honest. And so when I learned about that, I was like, this actually explains a lot. And it like literally gave, like, I feel like it was like almost like took a weight off my shoulders and made me realize, oh, that's why. This is why. This is what I'm designed to do. This is why I get all these ideas. This is why. This is why. And it's like, okay, we'll just roll with it.
Exactly.
And you stop fighting it, like, right?
Exactly.
We got to take that resistance away in life as best as we can.
Right. And whatever that means for you. For some people, it could be delegating. And if like in your case, hiring somebody to do that part for you, like the pieces that you're like this, again, it goes back to that not self theme, which if you look at your chart, everybody has one on there. And for us, it's frustration and impatience. And when you're feeling that, it's like, okay, where can I release this frustration? How would I do it? So maybe and maybe it's, if you're not in a place where maybe you can delegate or hire somebody, well, how can I make this easier for myself? But for a lot of times it's just figuring out like, what can I pass on to somebody else?
Simplifying. I will share that with everybody because I've tried to do a lot of that in my personal and professional life, right? We simplify because so many times things stack. And before you know it, you're doing a lot of things and you're like, but are these things necessary? Or am I just doing them because someone told me I should do them? And especially for other business owners out there listening, especially, and I don't care what size of business. I feel like whether you're a one-woman show or you've got a huge team, I think you got to reevaluate periodically because before you know it, and then that is what leads to burnout as a business owner, as a woman, as a mom, right? Like whether we're doing too many things in our personal life with our kids, they're like, we've been there with lots of activities and we're kind of in a phase where things are a little calmer and we're like, what, we don't have anything this weekend. We're like, what do we do with ourselves?
Yep. And it's okay to do nothing.
It is okay to do nothing. Get caught up on some other things in life, spend more time together, so
love it.
So Hope, is there anything else with human design and health in general that you feel like you want to share with everyone listening that you haven't already shared?
I think I would just encourage everybody to, especially if you use the site that we're talking about, the myhumandesign.com, really dive into your chart because the other pieces that I haven't touched on, but it's all very specific, your preferred environment and your digestion. And that's a big piece I hone in on with my clients. Your preferred environment is where the environment where you best connect with yourself and where you best connect with like that divine energy, whatever that is for you. And to really tune in to yourself. It's like a place to be more introspective and really connect with yourself. And I find that can be really helpful and supportive for people. And it does say that on our chart, if you do the myhumandesign.com. And then the other one is digestion, which is literally how you best digest food. It's like the way you best digest food. And I've always found it interesting for people when I'm explaining this one to them because like one of our clients a couple weeks ago, I was sending her some stuff for human design and hers was sound. This was low sound or quiet sound. However, I forget how it says it. Basically, it means that she best digests food in an environment where there's low noise, like there's not a lot of noise. And she was like, oh my gosh, I always wonder why I feel so like anxious when I'm eating in like a noisy restaurant or if there's a lot of people around. And she's like, I literally feel like my stomach's like, the whole time. And it's like, you're literally best digest in this particular way. My son is the total opposite. His is high sound. So, we always have music going, or, there's a TV on the background, and that's how he will eat. And so understanding those pieces can be really supportive. And so I think just diving into just the basics of your chart and just getting just the free version from one of those sites can be really helpful, and honing into your type, your not self-themed. So it's just that clue when you're out of alignment, and the digestion environment piece can be really supportive.
I think that's so interesting. I haven't gone that deep in mine. Now I'm like so intrigued when we get off this call. I'm going to be like going back.
Yes,
it's been a while.
look.
Maybe I've looked at it. It's been a long time. I'm like, oh, I want to go back in and dive a little deeper.
Yes.
Okay, Hope, this has been so fascinating. And I hope many of you listening will take advantage of finding your charts. And then maybe you'll probably want to come back, maybe even re-listen to even just the piece where Hope was talking about the type that you are. And it could be a little insight just to help you live a little bit more in alignment with you and your energy. So I think it's so fascinating. So Hope, will you share with everyone where they can find out more about you and everything that you do?
Yes. So you can find me I'm probably most active on Instagram. I'm at the Hope Pedraza. I also have a free Facebook group. It's Live Wholesome and Healthy. It's just all things functional health, nutrition, and some human design sprinkled in.
Awesome. Well, Hope, thank you so much. And we are going to be doing a part 2 as well. So be sure you ladies listen to that when that comes out. It is going to be all about how women are disproportionately affected by medical gaslighting and the effects of this. So I'm really excited for you all to listen to that as well.